Hi everyone, welcome to our next video. Thank you for tuning in and thank you for watching all the videos so far. Today we're going to be looking at carbohydrates. This is a follow-on to our Eat Well guide video which we put on the channel a couple of days ago. So if you haven't watched that, we'll put a link in the video and there'll also be a link at the bottom of the screen. So please do tune into that one, and we're really excited to see all of your entries to our competition for you to design the most healthy and balanced and nutritious plate of food. So please do continue to send those entries in. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and once you subscribe you'll then get notifications when we upload new videos to the channel, and we hope that these videos are helping you so far in learning a little bit more about science. So today, as I said, we're going to be looking at carbohydrates. These are a really good energy source within our diet. So carbohydrates are made up of three atoms. So we have carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, and we classify carbohydrates depending on how many sugar molecules they are made of. So you may all know of sucrose, so that's the sugar you may find on your shelf at home that people add to tea and you would be baking a cake or a cookie with. Sucrose is made up of two carbohydrate molecules, and it's what we call a disaccharide. When they're made of one sugar molecule, they're called a monosaccharide, and when they're made of more than 10 sugar molecules joined together in a really long chain, then we call them polysaccharides. And we're going to go through all of those individual carbohydrates now. So the first one we're going to talk about are the monosaccharides, the basic units of carbohydrates. So monosaccharides are made up of one sugar molecule, and that could be, for example, fructose, which is found in your fruit, like apples, or it could be glucose, which you've probably heard about due to your blood glucose levels, and that's found in lots of things like cakes and biscuits, but also in products like honey. So the fact that they're called monosaccharides, so mono meaning one, is that they're made up of one sugar molecule. So as I mentioned earlier, we have the disaccharides made up of two sugar molecules, and that's, for example, your table sugar, the sucrose, which is made up of one molecule of glucose, which we spoke about earlier, and one molecule of fructose. And when we talk about these disaccharides, they are two sugar molecules and they're joined together by a special bond, which you can see on the screen, and that is called a glycosidic bond, and that is the glucose and the fructose, in the case of sucrose, are joining together in a condensation reaction, which means they join together and a water molecule is released, and then a special bond forms between those two molecules. And as well as the sucrose as a disaccharide, we have other disaccharides like lactose. Now, lactose is found in dairy products like milk, also in cheese and in butter, and it's made up of two molecules again, so one molecule of glucose and one molecule of another sugar called galactose, and that again is joined together by a glycosidic bond. These are all part of a group of compounds called oligosaccharides. Now, oligosaccharides are made up of between 2 and 10 sugar molecules. And you can have other oligosaccharides which are naturally present in foods, and one of those is inulin. Now, inulin is found naturally in products like onions, garlics, and Jerusalem artichokes, and inulin is food for the good bacteria in our gut. So now we've gone through the monosaccharides and the oligosaccharides, we're now moving on to the final group of carbohydrates, which are the polysaccharides. And polysaccharides are made up of more than 10 monosaccharide units, so more than 10 sugar units. And one of the main, most abundant polysaccharides is cellulose. Cellulose is found in plant materials, such as this plant here, helping it to keep upright and stiff. Now, cellulose is found in the cell walls of plants, and it's a really good source of dietary fibre for us, and that's why vegetables are really good sources of fibre, because they contain lots of cellulose, and cellulose is the most abundant biological molecule as it's found really abundantly in all of those plants. We have other carbohydrate molecules, and they are energy storage molecules. So in humans and other animals, we store our energy within something called glycogen, which is how we compactly store our energy in parts of the body such as the liver and the muscles. And in plants, so like this plant here, they store their energy as starch molecules, and that's why vegetables like a parsnip or a carrot are really good sources of carbohydrates. And finally, we have other molecules such as pectin. Now, pectin is a polysaccharide and it's a gelling agent within products like applesauce and also jam. It's found abundantly within fruits like apples and like berries. And within products like jam, it's added to give that gelling structure of your jam. So if you were making jam yourself, you would add in pectin to get that firm-like texture to your product. When we talk about how much carbohydrate we should consume in a day, it's recommended we consume around 260 grams of carbohydrates a day, but that will highly depend on our exercise level, because how active we are depends on how much carbohydrates we will be using up during the day. So when we talk about the sources of carbohydrates, we're particularly looking at foods like bread, like pasta and like rice, but also other pulses like lentils and beans. And where possible, we should be eating the whole wheat or the wholemeal varieties of those carbohydrates. So wholemeal bread, wholemeal pasta, lentils, to increase our dietary fibre content, which most of the UK do not eat enough fibre within a day. The recommended intake of carbohydrates for adults is 260 grams, and this is based at 220 grams for children, but this will depend on your activity level. A higher activity level means you will need more carbohydrates in your diet. So the functions of carbohydrates in the body. The main function of carbohydrates is energy. Carbohydrates provide us with lots of energy, and they should make up around 30 to 50% of our diet depending on our activity levels. Now, carbohydrates are broken down in the body by your carbohydrate enzymes into glucose. So they're broken down into glucose, which can be quickly absorbed into the bloodstream, providing our bodies with energy. Now, the reason why we suggest that you eat the wholemeal varieties of products is, as well as them containing dietary fibre, their energy is released a lot slower within the body. So rather than, for example, having a really sugary drink that's going to give you a really big spike in sugar levels, you could have a piece of wholemeal toast or a starchy vegetable, which will give you your energy over a longer period of time. Another good thing about carbohydrates is they help to maintain our blood glucose levels. So our blood glucose levels are really important for our brain and our nervous system. And by consuming carbohydrates, we can maintain those levels across the day. Carbohydrates, as I've said, are really important sources of fibre, so in your vegetables and in your wholemeal products, and that helps to maintain good bowel health and make sure that your insides are really healthy. And finally, oligosaccharides are food for your good bacteria, and there's lots of health benefits to having a good array of bacteria within your gut. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about gut bacteria and fibre in a further video, so stay tuned for that one. So that's enough of me talking. We're nearly finished. We've just got one more thing to do, which is our carbohydrates quiz. So first things first, first question, what are the 3 atoms that carbohydrates are made up of? Shout out the answer. Okay, so it's carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Secondly, is sucrose a mono, di or polysaccharide? Again, shout out the answer. That's it, it's a disaccharide made up of glucose and fructose. What is the sugar found in dairy products? That's it, is lactose. Fourth question, what is the carbohydrate molecule that plants store their energy as? It's starch. So humans store their energy as glycogen and plants store their energy as starch, which is why lots of vegetables are very important sources of starchy carbohydrates. And the last question, name 2 functions of carbohydrates within the body. So you could have any two of the following, so providing energy, maintaining blood glucose levels, increasing fibre content, and also providing food for your gut bacteria. So that's it from me today. We'll be back with a video on proteins and fats. So stay tuned for that one, and I hope you've enjoyed today. Bye.